maybe just a few additional words about what I'm doing nowadays, and also why I'm here, is that I'm working with this international film marketing agency called Alpha Panda. I'm based in Warsaw, but Alpha Panda is based in Berlin with our small team there. And we are in general doing film marketing for the film industry, but we are mainly specialized in the social media campaigns for films. Our clients span from producers, sales agents, distributors, majors as well, to the institutions like European Film Awards, or everything that is happening around the Film Awards. This is us on social media, and we are doing campaigns for fiction, documentary films, and animations. But of course, today I am really I cannot wait to share some of our campaigns with you that we've done for documentaries. Small introduction why also I think CoPro asked us to do this webinar is that, you know, we've been lobbying within the film industry for the past 15 years that the industry should change their mindset and start to understand that digital is becoming more and more important when it comes to the in general film promotion, film presence, and you know, COVID somehow helped us a lot in making this quickly being understood. But you know, that was a long process that started at least 20 years ago, or even more, when digital came into the market, and when you know, all these events and activities to promote the film that happened usually at the time of the festival premiere or the cinema release started only there at that two more important moments for the film in the film career. So the world premiere or the launch at the cinemas. But you know, when the digital era started, you know, the communication about the film has also started earlier. First of all, you know, being at one of the workshops or works in progress in some catalogs that they were there then online, you've already started communicating your films, your projects. And also with digital, you know, it gave you tools to start to communicating with your potential target audiences, and it also gave you so many free tools to use to actually really be in touch with this with your audience or with your partners, and that was, you know, through advertising or through social media or through crowdfunding and outreach. And the whole beauty of this of being online was that this is not only one direction of the dialogue. I mean, the communication is a two-direction dialogue that aims at creating meaningful discussions, meaningful actions taken by your different target audiences online. So, and the ultimate goal of this is, of course, to reach and to broaden your audience and to reach out to the different target audience that each of the film has. And how to be prepared for this, since this is such a long way between the pre-production until the film release. And these presentations aims at give you some hands-on suggestion what you should think about when you are before before entering the shooting, or at least before finishing the shooting, so you have the material, the content, and then you know what you would need for later when your film will meet with the audiences. So as I already mentioned, this is really very much about changing the mindset. And there are four main changes that were brought by digitalizations, and I will talk about each of them right now. So first of all, segmentation of the audience, then complexity of the positioning, a new visual language, and a constantly evolving campaign. Campaign nowadays are really different from the so-called traditional campaigns when you did a poster trailer and a traditional PR with the media. So let's start with the audience segmentation. What do you know when we think again in terms of traditional marketing approach and about targeting back then? Usually, we have this division between primary, secondary, tertiary audiences. And all the materials that were created were done for the primary audiences that were defined by gender, age, and place of living. So typically for the documentary audience, it would be women 35 plus or even 40 plus living in the big cities. And when we think about social media and a presence online, we should skip thinking about this kind of focus approach and more to think about segmented approach, which means thinking about target much bigger groups, but defined by interest. And once you understand what kind of what is so for example, that would be definitely for again from a documentary audiences that will be fans of documentary. Definitely, if you have a documentary film about, let's say, environmental issues, so you will be targeting people who are interested in this topic. And maybe also you can target organizations that have a mission around environmental issues. So I think you already understood that this is more thinking about people that are sharing some common interests and not dividing the target groups based on only gender and age. Then once you have defined these different target audiences, then of course they will be probably they will be using different platforms. So not everyone is using Facebook, as well as not everyone is using Instagram and Twitter and YouTube. So for some of the films or some of the topics, Twitter may be best, but for example, a documentary about art, maybe Twitter won't not be that useful as Instagram would. We tend, because we are working for you, so at least in Europe, because we are observing social media trends by handling all these social media accounts for European Film Awards, we see that definitely Instagram is growing in terms of importance, but still Facebook is very important for film funds, and still film industry tends to be there. So when you think about, for example, raising awareness, not only about your film, but also about the director being a debutant, Facebook is really crucial for such communication. And then also, when you are when you find it hard to understand, okay, I have this many interests, but then which interest is the most important? Again, social media and especially Facebook nowadays comes with some of the very useful data that are there for free. It's just that you need to research them. And let me come with an example of a documentary that we were we just finished a campaign for it in Switzerland, but let me just tell you more after we watch this trailer.
강제 조용한 비숨진님이 너도 노제니 노노 마토리 샤르반이나 요러 미지 올리지 좀 노미 담이 라이 sablam이 많아지니 노 링크업 숨지지 않아 삼죠 우리니 거라지지 하이에 타나부다 하이 타나부지 설마 하이라마 하이라 텔라도 사진 하이 텔라도 설마 강복간이 마중한디 하이 마사르 마이 라르존 렘티 마이 라르존 좀
hit balzane za tu unit za ne
갑자기 람니 나와든지 doctor 로고 시 가다싱 시 코니티 가다세 라지
kana khuzimi de uda maza sala hana za kumpi undu langi undu
Namaste. Storata di mati alunga lai tang jani ni गरिगा त नसी क्या गरम खाइ त ढोंगा छिर्न दिसी
तपाईले चढ्दैन भनेपछि त अब म त पैसा दिनु त म सक्दिन
एकदम सेपिले बसेछ कि छैन नि चढ्दै छ भने दिँदै यिनीहरू बिचको भयो
Right. So when we did a campaign for this film recently in Switzerland for the cinema distribution, and this is how the traditional targeting would look like. So primary target female males, 35 to 50, educated female male, because it's still a documentary about climbing. So a male audience is much more important. Usually for documentary, we would say 70% of women, 30% of men. But here we thought that the balance here would be required, and that we really need to have material and content for the male audience because of the topic of the film. Then for the secondary targets, you see that we have a lot of different groups with interest, and now when we think about, all right, we can definitely put them in some more general groups. So this is what we've chosen. So we have dog lovers, we have mountain lovers, Nepal, Buddhist fans, climbing adventure travelers. And these all interests are based on the topics that the film talks about. But again, how do you know which one of these groups is the most stronger? And this is where Facebook can help you with. So we have climbing, adventure travel, Nepal, Buddhism, and mountains. And then when there is something what is called audience insights on Facebook. And you see on your left side of the screen, then you can choose the territory. So here it was, of course, Switzerland. Then you can choose age. So for us, it was 35 to 50. And then you can choose the interest in this tab called interest, and then you can see the numbers. And these were the numbers, and surprise, of course we could have anticipated that the people that have interest in mountains in general will be the biggest group, but we couldn't have thought that, for example, Buddhist funds would be much more important than climbing funds. And this is something where what you can learn only once you check the facts and you don't base your strategy or your campaign only on your preconceptions. So that, of course, helped us a lot to shape and format our communication and materials and texts, and ultimately helped us to save the budget and to invest it in the right interest groups. So of course we focus on mountain lovers, but then not forgetting about the fans of Nepal, Buddhism and climbing and adventure travelers. Then another changes that really reshaped the communication of the film online is the complexity of the positioning. You know, because usually when we think in terms of film marketing, there is one positioning that is very close to the main message of the film, and it works as a backbone. Then we know what kind of elements, 3 or 4 elements, we need to convey in our campaign. But here we are talking about really long-term campaigns that will require a lot of posts. And then you know, you will need not only to focus on one positioning, that for example you have it for a primary target audience, but also to focus on the position on the secondary positioning that they are created for secondary target audiences. And what is the biggest change is that requires thinking in terms of story world of the film, and not only in terms of the film as such. And if that's not clear enough, I will show you an example of another film that we've worked 2 years ago and it was selected for Berlinale Panorama, called Lemebel.
Antes del artista incluso está el homosexual. Reivindicamos el colisa. A nosotros no nos gusta la palabra gay, weón. No se adapta, weón, con lo que es un homosexual pobre en Chile, weón.
Después del año 87, 88, en la dictadura, ese contexto era brutal. Asesinatos de homosexuales en las calles, sujetos quemados vivos, como ratas.
Cualquier minoría que esté en lucha por sus derechos se les va a categorizar de violenta, porque es parte de la lucha. Si ese homosexual tiene SIDA, si ese homosexual es tercermundista, si ese homosexual es pobre, si ese homosexual es indígena, lo matan.
La performance era el salto al vacío.
Me dijiste que te filmara, que no dejara de hacerlo.
Right, so this is a beautiful documentary from a Chilean director, Joanna Solecka, about Pedro Lemebel, an artist, a performer, an activist for the human rights for queer and LGBT community in Latin America at the time of Pinochet. So we definitely, in terms of story world, we could talk about art and performance of Lemebel. We also had the whole context, historical and political context of Chile. We had all these LGBTIQ issues and subjects. And we also have the director, female director behind this film. And then we had this division between core message and focus on Pedro Lemebel with all the quotes, videos, photos of him. And the aim here was to build an icon, starting from the poster, but also ending on all the posts that we created around this core message. And for secondary messages, we had definitely the career of the film, so the releases. We had again the context of Chile in the time of Lemebel and the legacy of Pedro Lemebel. We've run this campaign for 6 months because that was a film that we awarded as Alpha Panda with Audience Engagement Award at the Vision du Réel a year before. And fortunately, it only 1 year after, it ended up having award premiere at Berlinale. So we ran a 6 months campaign and that was the award. And now we are giving the same award, but not at Vision du Réel anymore, but at the Les Arcs, which is open for documentaries and fiction films. So that was a small remark here. Lemebel. And then this is how, that translated into the communication on social media. So mainly so we did a campaign on Facebook and Instagram. So we, as I said, the aim was to position Pedro Lemebel as an iconic character, iconic artist, iconic activist from the region. And that was based on his quotes, as you can see. That was based on the art inspired by him. And it was also based on his on some of the interviews that he's done. And then we also, especially on Instagram, we had secondary messages. So we had arts inspired by artworks inspired by Pedro himself, and also the director as an important element of the whole communication. Since Pedro Lemebel is not anymore there, but Joanna Reposi was there with us at the film festival, and at the same time being a female director, that's still, it's a big attitude when we think about communicating and promoting the film to the industry nowadays. The next big change brought by digitalization is thinking in different terms about visual language. So how do we promote film? We are used to promote the films with the posters, with the stills, with a trailer or teasers, and they are all, they are big formats, rather more cinematic. And now we are talking about social media, which tends to be used only on a mobile phone, so that requires strong messages, but on very small also formats. And that comes with these rules. First of all, short posts posts should be short. That means not more than one message per post. So don't make a complex post because no one will read it, or unless they are hardcore fans of your film or of the topic that your film talks about. Then the formats, they are different from the usual 60:9, although they are still. Sorry, someone has raised hand. Is it about the question or about the quality of the connection?
No, the quality is fine. Don't worry.
All right. Perfect. 60:9 are still used, but then they are much smaller, and also if you have the stories format that comes with the with the rules that, for example, if you have a film with 2 characters and you have a still with both of these characters but far away and on horizontal, in a horizontal format, then you will never make a story out of it. And these are the small details that you should be aware while being on shooting plan and while producing the film. So just this, if you have 2 characters, make a portrait or make a still with them but close to each other, because otherwise you won't be able to use the stills with 2 people on one visual for the purpose of social media. Then also about clips, they tend to work better than still visuals, although that also depends on the quality of, if you have a beautiful visual, that can be much stronger sometimes than a clip is. But again, you know, if you have clip and if you are about to produce a video for the usage of social media, then you need to remember that usually people are watching it without sound, so they need to work without sound as well as they are working with sound. And then again, about the duration, and I think that's nothing new to anyone, but it also needs to be, you know, remember that, you know, for Instagram, if you want to sponsor, so invest in a trailer, for example, a teaser, then it's maximum of 1 minute, because something what is called IGTV, you know, you can still make it and you can do it and use it for longer videos and clips, but then it cannot be sponsored. And for stories, it's even shorter. It's only 15 seconds. So just a few examples for the formats. That's something that works really beautifully on social media, which are animated posters. So if you have a chance to do it, and if there is really a purpose for doing so, then, you know, definitely that's something that you can. Or there should be a music, but it's no music. But it's that was the poster cut out based on a scene. So we cut out the scene, but there was a really strong music behind. I'm sorry that we don't have it here. Then another example of a documentary film that was selected for ITVA a year ago, called Lessons of Love. There's a Polish documentary about Jola, who you see here, 70 years old woman who is who decided to change her life and left her abusive husband and find a new love in her life. And, you know, and that's also an example how you can play with your content online, because at the end, you know, people, when they are using social media, this is also about entertainment. And if you can produce anything that can be playful, which doesn't mean funny, but playful and strong, and then it's that is how you exist, how you become visible on social media. So here, you know, we thought, you know, that this story of Yola from Lessons of Love, it reminds us so much about the story of Marilyn Monroe, and also this kind of her, how she looks like, and also the colors that were used for different versions of the poster reminds us of this classical painting of Andy Warhol and Marilyn Monroe. So we, of course, we wanted to play with this, highlighting again the female character in the story, and also her very complex story behind it, behind this beautiful face. And then talking about clips that should work without sound. Here is how we cutted the trailer, or just the excerpt of a trailer, you know, with the And here just a scene for a story purpose. And, you know, the film was selected for a competition called for the first competition for first appearance. So of course, you know, that was the first appearance of Viola, so we wanted to use it. And then another, you know, just a short excerpt from a scene, but that needs to work with sound, definitely, but also a typical example of something that you wouldn't never use for press. You will never send it to any journalist. It's purely for social media. And then another example of a documentary selected for hot dogs earlier this year. Again, something that you will never use for classic promotion purposes. And here I want to share with you one thing about Touch Me Not, a hybrid film that won Berlinale 2 years ago, and we did the campaign on social media for this film. And this is exactly to show you the difference between thinking in terms of how you promote the film to the industry and at the time of the world premiere of the Berlinale. And here is this choice of stills that the team have chosen at the time of Berlinale. And here is the choice of the shots of the stills that we made for the purpose of social media. So how different it is and how much more stills and visuals you would need that are, of course, about the same. It's about, you know, they are telling the same, they are having the same message. It's you know, it's purely about a film about emotions. It's about intimacy, it's about touching, it's about body, it's about being close to each other, it's about being lonely. You can see it, of course, from this choice of stills that that is a bit bigger than this one. And then, of course, this choice then translates into different purposes, from quotes at the time of Berlinale to some of the new events that happened once the film started its festival career after world premiere. And what is really the most exciting part of this changes brought by digitalization is that these campaigns are live. They you will be getting live results, and it's better that you pay attention to them so you can react and adapt and reevaluate if it's necessary. So first of all, before starting any campaign, if you have any doubts, if you want to check, as I already showed you with the case of the wall of shadows and 5 different target audiences in Switzerland, you can test a lot of things. You can also test your content. You can test your materials, clips, photos. So having a solid strategy is very important, but what is equally important is to be flexible. It's in implementation, which means that you will be looking at the results and being open to adapt what is happening, and if the campaign is working or not. Just an example of how you can Facebook is useful to test your film stills. So sometimes, you know, for some of the campaigns, especially when you are not having a Facebook page dedicated to the film, I don't know, you are working with a distributor that have a chance to promote one still, to promote the screening of your film, then it's really important what kind of still you will choose, because you want this material to be relevant to the audience you want to target. And there was this research made by Netflix that actually human brain needs not more than 13 milliseconds to judge if a visual is worth to dig more about it. So to eventually click on it and see the film, or just find more about the film. So how important it is, it's of a great importance to have a good visual that will be relevant online for your audiences. So what you can do is to launch a test campaign on Facebook that shows randomly one image to each of the user, and then through the algorithm you get the results. And this is how what we've done for a film called The Trial: The State of Russia versus Oleg Sentsov. Again, a documentary about an Ukrainian director that was sentenced to jail by Putin's Russia, and who was accused but not proved guilty of terrorist attacks. And thanks to the international human rights organizations, as well as the film industry pressure, he was released exactly a year ago. So he's not anymore in jail, but at that time he was still in jail, and that was and the premiere of the film was scheduled in Berlin. And we knew that we are part of traditional film promotion, world premiere promotion. We have an impact campaign to do here, and that was the choice of the stills that we got from the film team. Being a documentary, we know that not a lot of productions can allow to have the still photographer. There's just simply no budget for someone who is a still photographer. So then you just go around, get random stills or just screens from your material, and then this is what we've got. And how do you know which one will be the most important? Well, these were the results. And of course, you cannot promote the film with the Putin's, the film about Oleg Sentsov with Putin face on a visual. But then I couldn't tell if the bottom right is more, it will be more stronger and more relevant for the audiences than the top left. Would you? I don't think so. And then again, talking about leaving campaigns, you need to be ready for surprise. And sometimes there are good surprises, like in the case of this amazing documentary called Over the Limit, that premiered in the main competition of ITVA 3 years ago. And let's watch the trailer first.
Осталось 2-3 месяца до Олимпийских игр, и все закончится.
Почему ты так можешь? Вот скажи, почему?
Вы накачиваете, я накачиваю.
Она должна выступать на образе, а не на конкуренции.
Ты не можешь признать то, что не можешь сказать, да, я не сделала, потому что опять думала о другом.
И не береги силы, не сдохнешь. Сдуны, Оля.
Вы постоянно меняться местами.
Флаг России должен быть всегда на первом месте, и уже не важно, кто из нас, то есть для России.
Ты у меня хороший, ты у меня самое лучшее. Ты не бросаешь меня, а я не бросаю тебя.
what happened with this film at the time of the ITFA award premiere, when we launched this trailer, and it was one of the first posts that we launched for this campaign. After 4 hours, it became viral. But that was a really nice surprise, especially that, you know, that was a documentary film in the Russian language from a debutant director from Poland, something that never happens, or almost never happened, but it happened to Over the Limit. And it was due to the passionate audiences for rhythmic gymnastics and the fans of Margarita Mamun, who is actually still the golden medal winner in rhythmic gymnastics. And this is a film of how she prepared for this ultimate goal of becoming the champion in rhythmic gymnastics, and how about the struggle and about finally winning this golden medal. So we did this campaign. We when the trailer became viral, we didn't need to use the whole budget for the campaign, so that was a good news, because everything that we posted was shared, commented, and liked. But then we also looked at the stats, and that was, you know, we knew that, all right, definitely this film will the majority of the audiences will be women. But here, as you can see, you know, almost 90% were women, which is quite an important information. But also the biggest group within women were the young female, young women between 18 to 24, which doesn't happen for documentaries. I mean, for art house films that you can watch in the cinema and not on Netflix or HBO. So that was also something that gave us hints that maybe there is a crossover potential for this film, but also it also suggested us that we need to think about these female audiences, and they are definitely different, and they speak different language. So we need to differently communicate with them, comparing to women 35, 44. And when this film was about to be released in 15 countries of Europe, but it was done by an organization called Moving Dogs that doesn't exist, unfortunately, anymore. It was, but hopefully it will be reborn under some other name. So there was an association of all the major documentary distributors in Europe that met once a year in Thessaloniki to think about and to brainstorm about campaigns for the films that they will all distribute, and ultimately join forces also budget-wise to create strong campaigns for documentaries. So for this film, we of course were thinking about documentary funds. We of course were thinking about general support funds, but then we knew that we need something special for our young female audience. And that's why when we thought about creating clips, we thought about these 3 teasers, and each of them will be targeted to different audience. So let me now present you these 3 different teasers, and please think back in your head about these 3 different target audiences that we were designing these teasers for. So documentary fans, sport fans, and young female audience. And try to guess which one is for which target. All right, first one.
Ты полное говно была. Полное говно.
Скотина такая, ты делаешь это в прогоне, сюда смотри!
Это на контрольной программе. Я ей сказала, делай это упражнение, трагедию покажи, то, что у тебя папа. Вот что я ей сказала. А это олимпиада. Ну кто проиграл?
The second one.
Осталось 2-3 месяца.
Опять, ну тебе не зашибет, что ты билет не сделала фундаментальную ссылку. Опять ты поставишь людей, подставишь себя, подставишь меня и всех остальных.
Личная пицца есть?
Ну, это каждый раз преодолевать себя, в первую очередь.
All right. So the first one, documentary funds. You know, you have a clear conflict and the journey of a character. The second one, young females. Only pure beauty of the sport with all the glimmer and makeup and beauty of sport and no dialogue. And the third one, fans of sport with all the struggle that was required to prepare for the Olympics and the victory at the end. But of course, before, because, you know, we are within the documentary industry, you know, the budgets are small and the budget for promotion are even smaller. We want to know, we wanted to be sure that our preconceptions about target audiences and their choices towards these 3 teasers will be proved. So we did test campaigns, each of them I think lasting for about 5 days and pushed for about 30 euros. So we checked if this, who was responding most to these teasers. And again, we checked, of course, the groups of interest, so documentary, sports, and women and young female audiences. And in most of the countries, our preconceptions were confirmed, but in some countries, sport fans went for the teasers that we designed for young female audiences, which ultimately helped these distributors in these countries to save some money, because instead of investing in 3 teasers, I invested in 2, and they invested really well, because the audiences there responded more to the young female designed trailer. So just to sum up this part, here is the digital marketing checklist. So first of all, you should start with mapping all of your possible target groups. Target groups are chosen by interest. So think about the topics, subjects, assets that your film has, and based on that, you will define your target groups. Then plan ways to expand the story world. So don't focus only on the film, but also think about the whole context, social, political, historical, depending on your film that you're making. And then try to use the production moment to prepare these materials. So you will when you will save your money, and because once the production is over, it's over, and then you work with what you have, and test and retest and pay attention to the results, and if possible, have fun, because once you have fun, the audiences will have fun as well. And here I want to share with you a very short case study from earlier this year, the premiere of a beautiful Finnish documentary called Shallow, Iceland of Souls, that premiered at CPH. So that was a film from a Finnish visual artist, Lotta Petronella, so a female director, a beautiful, visual, poetic, personal story set on an Iceland where used to be a prison for women. We used to be as a prison for women, and then the primary target audience was defined as female 45 plus, dog lovers interested in art and experimental films. And as I mentioned, the world premiere happened at CPH Docs this year. Here is the trailer.
Jag kommer ihåg något som min väninna berättade åt mig för länge sedan. Som barn hade hon sett kvinnor fly längs med isen från ön. De var iklädda vitt för att inte skiljas från det vintriga landskapet.
As you can see, a very short trailer, but already gave you a feeling that this is a cinematic, immersive, sensual journey and a female story, since you hear the narrative coming from actually the director herself. So that was the choice of stills. As you can see, definitely suggesting human story, but against nature. So the nature is very present in most of these visuals. Then in terms of mapping the targets, people interested in female feminist topics, people interested in history, people interested in nature, in contemporary art, since this is really also a beautiful art house film coming from an artist. Of course, people interested in documentaries in general, and fans of the Nordic stories or Baltic Nordic countries. For positioning, we had one core message that's a beautiful journey into forgotten female stories. And in terms of story world, definitely mostly aesthetical and sensorial, together with the elements of Baltic, of the presence of the director herself, so Lotta Petronella, and her other work, and also the soundscape that was really important, including music coming from Launau. And then for the visual identity that we wanted to have on social media, we definitely wanted to have the poetic and mysterious feeling in it. So that's what has came out of this very short, like the strategy in short that I just told you. So from this kind of, that was a cover on Facebook. That was one of the posts. And then the other. everything in tune with the story, with the tone of the story, with this topic of the story, and with this and with the aesthetics of the story, and also trying to translate this immersive and quietness of this incredible documentary. And that's where I would like to stop. I will stop sharing my screen right now. So coming back to you. Are you still there? Great. I hope connection was good.
Yeah, it was.
Great. Wonderful. I will now check what's happening in the chat. All right, no sound. I'm so sorry. I hope that was fixed.
No, it was okay.
The cost of targeting the target audience and advertising to the target audience is not cheap, and documentary filmmakers sometimes do not have the required, but well, yeah. My question are, what are the average costs for targeting a target audience and a persona campaign for a target audience? I'm not sure what you mean by persona campaign, but let's move on. After you spend your budget, on what platforms and in what ways do you ensure a positive ROI? Because spending money on target audience targeting and advertising is always possible. The question is whether there is a positive ROI afterwards. I need to understand, what do you mean by ROI? Is this, so we are on the same?
I think it's cost, return on investment. Return on investment.
Return
on investment.
Return on investment. All right. Thank you. So first of all, the average cost for targeting, well, that of course depends on the scale, because you can target some, for example, big countries in Europe, or just small local communities. In some countries are more expensive than the others. For example, Switzerland tends to be very expensive when we think about the cost for targeting. So it's I'm not sure what can I tell you in terms of average cost. What I can tell you that when you have a cost, for example, per view of 20 cents, that's a good result. If you have anything below, it means that your campaign is running really well. I'm not sure if that answers your question. Return on investment, which means that I guess you mean how many people are actually going to the cinema. I'm not sure if, or buying a film. And you know, this is always tricky with social media, and that's why we treat campaigns as awareness campaigns mostly. There are some ways on YouTube how we can definitely help, and you know, there is and make campaigns that are performing better, and then your films or materials will be performing better on YouTube. But then on social media, it's if you want to try to make a direct sorry, I'm now missing a word in English, but let me say it in other words. So if you want to translate this number of likes, for example, to the number of people that will go to the cinema or download this film, this is something that's, you know, there are no such research and there are no such rules, and usually it tends to be a very small percentage. Oh, it's called conversions, right? Conversions. So conversion rate tends to be rather small. But what you count on is spreading the word, because nowadays you are really fighting for existence online among all the other content which is out there. And if you can manage to have as many points of reference, points of, you know, when you hear the film or someone is sharing something about this film or you see it on your wall on social media, then how you are being kept reminded about that this film exists and eventually did something for you. But because from the moment when you understand, for example, by seeing a poster or watching a trailer, oh, this film is definitely for me, I need to watch it. So between this moment until the moment that you actually see it and download or buy the film online or go to the cinema, that's a long journey. So what you are doing on social media, it's first of all, you can, the aim is to create buzz and also to enable people to share, to comment, to basically spread the word about your film. Let's move to the next one. And Facebook, Instagram campaigns, have you all worked on organic exposure or sponsored exposure? Is this the second option? Is there an equation of to get? Oh my God. So the thing is that we are working on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube. Organic campaigns, they tend not to exist anymore, unfortunately. So having any campaign, and especially campaign around releases, you need to have a budget to invest in it. And that budget would differ from country to country. For Poland would be bigger than for Israel, that's for sure. But if you happen to have a passionate, even niche target audience for a specific film, that definitely helps you to create an organic reach. But just algorithms won't let you go beyond certain numbers, even of numbers of your followers. Unfortunately, there are some tips. I haven't mentioned that, but just for you to remember, if you have, because we are in the film world, if you happen to have a trailer, for example, on YouTube or Vimeo, don't link to these platforms on Facebook. It's always better to upload native content on Facebook, because this is how they own your content, and this is how they the algorithms will favor this kind of content. Do you think a page of the film on Facebook is a must? No, of course not. It's always it's a part of your strategy. You need to have content for social media online use, but it doesn't mean that you need to create special pages, accounts for Facebook, because there is nothing more sad than just dead pages for so many great films out there. So, for example, you can create your campaign by using your producer's page or your distributors or some of your partners. It depends. But of course, if you have a longer campaign, if you know that you need to outreach to different groups, and there are some passionate audiences that will have a patience to wait until your film is out there. And then you really need to and you can gather these funds, so they are online at the moment when your film is premiering. That's great. We were running the campaigns. They lasted 1.5 years, or sometimes even longer, but not longer than that, because that's also a big budget behind that. So it really depends. If you have a one-offs, maybe it doesn't make sense. Maybe on Instagram for some films would make much more sense than being on Facebook. And Twitter, I also didn't mention it, but Twitter tends to be interesting for film industry only in some countries. So, for example, in Spain, it's very important. In Poland, doesn't really make that much sense. For example, I'm not sure how it's in Israel? What's the best time to start a campaign, before the international premiere or after? So that's, again, it depends on your film. If you have niche target audiences that you can outreach earlier and have something what we call an early engagement, that's great. But then you need to also have time and energy to do this campaign beforehand. I would say that 6 months before the premiere, it would be ideal, to also budget-wise, so you have time to create a nice buzz and have and get funds. But when we talk about world premieres at the festivals, usually you get to know about it like a month before and a month and a half before, and you know, these are the moments when you definitely need to start your campaign, because festival world premiere, it's a very important momentum for the life cycle of your film, and for you as a director and producers as well. But then starting to think about, all right, how my presence online should look like 1 month and a half before the world premiere, that's a little bit too late. We are used to do it, but then we are forced to work with the materials that we have, and that's not always ideal. So I would say having a solid strategy before starting shooting would be nice to have, so then you would understand when to start. Have you ever used social media influencers? Can you share tips on VOD movie pricing? I'm not sure. What do you mean VOD movie pricing? Is it for pricing an influencer? Because when it comes to influencers, we never paid an influencer. We work with influencers, but we never paid one. We rather offered something in an exchange, and that worked really nicely and really organically. However, we know that there are influencers, and sometimes people base their whole campaign on influencers only, because it's enough for 1 or 2 influencers to shout out about the film, and then you have, for one-offs especially, that can be enough. And I would say that probably these are the prices between 1,500 to 3, maybe 3,000 euros. Maybe not that much, depending on the title, I guess. But I think it starts from 1,500 euros. Thank you. My question is, creating a following early. I'm afraid of giving away anything from the story itself in order to keep the audience engaged. I imagine we should share the process, the story. How would you advise on that? So that comes back to what I've meant about story world, which means not to be focused on the film and the story and what is film about, but rather about the context and maybe the people who are behind, or the cause the film is about, or some statistics about your topic. So anything that is relevant to your story and with what your target audiences can engage with, what will be interesting for them. And that's also, for the early engagement, it's also a nice moment to try and test what is working, what doesn't work. So definitely something to think about, although then you need to be aware of a long campaign that you need to handle. Regarding the sale of the film online, what do you think of the pay as much as you want method? Some argue that the bottom line is that people will pay more when they have an option. They fix prices for download renting. I have to admit, I haven't heard about something. We don't work for VOD platforms that much, so it would be hard for me to answer this question. I'm sorry. I don't know. If I think about myself, for example, that probably also differs from country to country, I would probably pay ticket price, I think, a regular cinema, art house cinema ticket price, probably. And I would think that this is a fine price. Do you have any tips for impact campaigns, as they much different from campaigns that are made just to draw viewers? Well, first of all, you know, if you have a documentary that has a potential for an impact campaign, you should definitely have a strategy for an impact campaign before entering the shooting and start to create, because that's based on partnerships and ambassadors. So creating this map and making it work, it really requires a lot of time, especially when you think to work with bigger organizations, which I wouldn't advise you to do, because that's always much more complicated. Rather small organizations are better. You can also consider to hire someone who will be your impact producer, and there are people like that. Me being an audience designer, so that's well, this is something what is kind of a equivalent for an impact producer in a documentary world. I'm a big fan of that. It's very organic. It definitely makes the audience bigger and helps to raise awareness about the film. So and eventually, if that can happen and help you to make an impact with your film, so to change something in the world, that's even greater. There are some specialized websites about impact campaigns, so I would say that I would check this. VOD pricing, how much will people for watching film online, you know, so that also, of course, that will now change a lot, because we didn't, you know, with the whole level of piracy out there, plus we could have watched the content in cinemas back then, and now we can't. I think this year will show us what's working, what doesn't, but before COVID, VOD revenues tend to be very, very small. And when the COVID enters just here, for example, in Poland, we had this big hit in the cinemas that managed to open right before lockdown in Poland. And the price for the film stream online was something around 10 euros. And it was just too much for people to. So I would judge by myself right now, and just to say the price of a ticket in a cinema. However, this, I don't have any data right now to really answer your question. I'm sorry.